In Custody is a 1984 novel by the Indian author Anita Desai. It's a meditation on the value of art using poetry as the exemplar. The title comes from the observation that a skilled chronicler of someone else's life may become the custodian of that person's reputation for posterity, but will thereby fix his or her own role and so effectively be in the custody of that figure. The story is fairly simple. Devon Sharma, a poor lecturer from a poor town near Delhi, is invited by his childhood friend Murad to interview a great Urdu poet called Noor for Murad's journal. Noor is an old man and Devon has always idolised him. Earlier in life, Devon he still aspires occasionally, to be a poet himself, so he accepts the assignment. He repeatedly meets Noor, but nothing goes according to plan. Everything is seen through Devon's eyes, so we only get his perspective on things. That's important because he's unreliable, not because he deliberately withholds information, but because his ideas are so fixed. In some ways, he resembles V.S. Naipaul's Mr. Biswas. He's peevish, insecure, a snob, and a bully. Noor, the poet, is narcissistic, self-pitying, a heavy drinker, and a bit of a sponger. He prefers the company of sycophants to his wife and children. In short, there's a stark contrast between the alleged greatness of the poetry and the obvious banality of the man. All that makes the novel sound bleak, but it's not, partly because Desai never loses sight of the central questions. What is the value of art if it's not edifying? What's the wellspring of great art? Is it actually more likely to emerge from someone who's at least slightly dissolute? Great artists are rarely sane, sometimes they're their very opposite. And how do we even know what constitutes great art? Who judges? In this case, how do we know that Noor is a great poet rather than simply say a good one? His first wife doesn't know, and his fans, at least those we meet, are more like toadies than poetry aficionados. And why has no one thought to interview him before now? He's a whale in a pail of water, as one character charitably puts it. A compliment, but it simply underlines the difficulty of objectively assessing him. At the beginning of the novel, we learn that his name has been repeatedly submitted to the Nobel Prize Committee, but there's never been any response. That may not mean anything, of course, but maybe it does. As well as the three main characters, all men, and that's crucial, there are several minor ones. Easily the most important is Noor's second wife, Imtiaz Begum. She considers herself a good poet, though not a great one. That may be modesty, we don't know. We only have Devon's evaluations, and he doesn't rate her at all. At the end of the novel, she writes Devon a touching letter enclosing some of her poems, which she challenges him to have the courage to read. She points out what ought to have been obvious all along. She's a lower-class woman, and so bound to be underrated by most self-styled intellectuals. Reading the letter, Devon notes the elegance and floridity of her Urdu, which enters his ears like a flourish of trumpets. Stupidly, though, he can't be bothered to read the poems. At this point, Desai herself breaks in to pass judgment. Devon did not have the courage, she reports bluntly. On one reading of this novel, there are many others. It's all about the distortions that occur in any literary landscape when women's voices are excluded or marginalised. Ironically, one of Noor's greatest achievements is a verse sequence called the Rose Poems, which are all about the enticements and frailties of women. Of course, that particular cliché speaks volumes.